Okay, next item under new business is a discussion regarding the placement or placement, as the agenda says, of greenhead boxes. Who is leading that off?
Mr. Quinn, you're up.
Okay,
All right, so thank you. I want to thank Max and the rest of the board members for allowing me to speak. This is going to be kind of a two-part presentation. With me is Barry Noon from the Northeast Mosquito Control. Barry and I have never met, so we get to meet tonight here on Zoom, but we have spoken. So I'm going to kind of read I don't know if all of the members have the proposal that I sent, but I'm going to kind of read from that, my little outline, and then I'm going to refer to Barry for the more specifics on the program itself. So what I'm looking for is hoping to obtain the board's support for Gloucester to participate in the control of greenhead flies. Every summer, the salt marshes along the Annisquam River is inundated with these biting insects. Economically, greenhead flies can be very harmful as well as a nuisance, as anybody on the river or waterfront here in Gloucester knows. In Essex County, they can affect real estate values, beach use, golfing, outdoor recreation, and so on. They are not considered a health problem to people, as they have not been found to transmit disease. However, some people have strong allergic reactions to their bites. And again, expanding on the fact that anybody that is along the water in Gloucester, whether you're boating, kayaking, swimming, or just sitting outside on anywhere, these greenheads are vicious. They are a nuisance. And if anybody has been bitten by them, they'll see the marks of it with the big welts that they leave on you. Their season is from June to September, with the highest density occurring the last 2 weeks of July to the first week of August. And this is also the height of summer for boaters and beachgoers. As I have mentioned, I've been in contact with Northeast Mosquito Control, which runs the North Shore Greenhead Fly Program, and I will refer to Barry to talk a little bit more about that. But I've also learned that every other coastal community from here right up to the New Hampshire border, and actually over into New Hampshire, to some degree participates in the program, whether through Northeast Mosquito Control or over the border in New Hampshire through another company. I have learned that Essex, Manchester by the Sea, Ipswich, Newbury, Salisbury, Newburyport, and surprisingly, even Saugus participate in the program of the greenhead fly trap program. And I've also learned that Gloucester itself used to participate in the program back in the 1970s and the 1980s, at which time Gloucester had as many as 58 traps. But I'll give you the current numbers of what the communities are doing themselves right now. Essex alone has 40 boxes. Manchester by the Sea only has 4, but Ipswich has 200. Newbury has 87, Saugus 25, Salisbury 40, and Newburyport 13. So basically what I'm asking for your consideration and support is for Gloucester to re-enter into the greenhead trap program. And then I'm going to refer to Barry to speak again more specifically about the program and its costs. So Barry, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me?
yep,
Yep. Okay. Well, my name's Barry Noon, District Director of Mosquito Control, and Tom did a great job with his presentation. Took a lot of my firepower away. But I do have a quick presentation. If I could share that with you guys?
Yep, you have permission to share. Go right ahead.
Okay. You gonna work for me? Here we go. Oh, it's not working. I apologize. Why did that not work?
Because you needed it.
Yeah. Ah. Oh, come on. This is why I usually have my IT person with me. It was just there.
It looks like it showed up initially and then we lost it.
All right, so there it is. Now let me. Okay.
There we are.
There we go. Okay. All right. Everybody can see the screen.
Yeah,
Mhm.
thank
Yeah.
you.
Yes. Yep.
My name is Barry Noon again, as I said, and the first thing I want to start off with is that our North Shore Greenhead Fly Control Project is completely separate entity from our mosquito control project. There are two different funded sources, and anyone can be part of the Greenhead Fly project. They do not have to be part of our Greenhead, I mean our mosquito control project. So first thing I'd like to start off with is greenhead flies are produced from our coastal salt marshes. They are usually found in healthy salt marsh areas, and some studies have shown greenheads can be bioindicators of negative impacts and recovery to the environments. For example, after oil spills, marsh water management by ditching may also enhance greenhead production. Their eggs and larvae are also a food source for wasps, coastal birds, and fish. However, they are notorious pests with significant economic effects due to their aggressive and painful blood feeding. We have an old saying that you need to carry a 5-pound hammer with you if you plan on killing a greenhead. It's the only thing that'll work. Since total elimination of the greenhead problem is impossible and ecologically undesirable, the most sensible approach to reduce the number of flies in high intensity at recreation areas such as beaches, marinas, and summer residences. We started the project in 1955 to bring relief to coastal areas of the North Shore. Each year, the marshes boxes are deployed each year at different locations throughout the district. In 1968, the project began to experiment with different devices designed to trap adult greenhead flies. The Manitoba trap from the Maine State Forest Service was modified and adapted for use here, as you can see in the picture, in Essex County. Our trap design uses basic fly behavior rather than insecticides or chemicals. Flies are attracted to the placement. Reflected heat, shape, and color will get the fly into the device. Then typically the fly flies directly up into the confinement area and become trapped. Our trap is also modified for coastal greenhead use in unpredictable, harsh salt marsh conditions. After 1922, we did put an octanol or ox breath bait in the traps, which increased the amount of flies that we were able to catch. Just a quick biology. The salt marsh horsefly, often called the greenhead fly, actually is two different species of Tanabids. Both species are found on the salt marshes in the Atlantic coast from Nova Scotia all the way to Florida. Essex County adult flies are most abundant from July through mid-August. They're easy to identify. They have large iridescent green compound eyes with a single band running through the center of each eye. The rest of their body is a light buff of yellowish brown pale stripe running down their abdomen. And they can be at a minimum a half-inch long. The entire life cycle takes place around the salt marsh, although females will migrate up to 15 miles to seek a blood meal. Greenheads predominantly feed on the blood of humans and large mammals during the day. Some are known to transmit disease. Some Tanabid species can transmit disease. Our greenhead species are not known to do so in humans, just pain and discomfort. The greenhead mouth parts include two sharp tools that look much like a pair of scissors. In seconds, they inject their mandibles into exposed flesh. These mandibles flex outwards, severing every capillary and vein they encounter. Just like the female mosquito, the female greenhead injects her saliva into your body when she first bites. The saliva is injected using a salivary pump that coats the wound with a burning antiseptic and anticoagulant chemical to keep the blood flowing without scabbing. This all causes intense pain to the victim. They quickly use spongy mouth parts to suck up the stimulated blood, and then they fly off, all before being swatted. Unfortunately, female greenhead flies are present and searching for blood on the beaches of Essex County when most visitors are using the beaches for recreation. The life cycle of an adult greenhead emerges in June to feed on nectar. Then the male on the open marsh then mate with the male, in early summer. Within a few days, the non-aggressive female lays her first fertilized eggs, up to 100 to 200 on the marsh grasses. After the first batch of eggs is deposited, she becomes extremely aggressive. And that's usually that first aggressive wave we get in July. She will migrate from marsh areas through gaps in the vegetation into wooded and open landscapes looking for a blood meal. Blood meals provide her with protein that is used to produce and develop additional eggs. The eggs mature and may stay on blades of salt marsh grass until hatching. The eggs hatch within 1 week into a worm-like larva. They can be as many as 80 mature larvae in a single square meter of marsh sod. Developing larvae concentrate along the upper vegetation zone and reach the daily high tides. In the late spring to early summer, the warming soil triggers the mature larvae to form into pupae. Depending on environmental conditions such as light temperature, tides, flying adults emerge from the pupae in within 10 days after a salt marsh flooding. Salt marsh soils up and down the coast warm at slightly different times, and the hatches can be staggered and more in the southern areas than the farther north areas. It is not unusual to have a heavy early summer peak than a second milder late summer peak in 1 year. A little bit about our operations. This is one of our most demanding and physical activities. Usually in February, we start new trap construction. Every year we cycle out the severely damaged traps that can't be repaired and build entirely new ones. We will also build traps for any new municipalities that may join the program. We construct new panels, legs, inner framework, screens, and tops. All these pieces are coated with 2 coats of black paint prior to assembly. In May, we begin to deploy the traps in the season in the communities. We take them out of storage, bait each one with octanol lure, and then transport them to the site. We have over 450 traps, and it takes multiple loads of transportation out to the rivers and towards the salt marshes in the district. Many traps are also put out by boat as well as hand. In June through late September, our traps sit there and basically do their job and collect thousands upon thousands of greenhead flies. Our retrieval starts in September, and we bring the traps in where we clean them and start basically filing through them to see what can be repaired, what needs to be destroyed, and we do it all over again every year. Here's a couple pictures of trap placement. With the biology of the fly, we tend to put out straight lines. Other communities, other mosquito controls such as Cape Cod do a staggered approach. Dragon Mosquito Control up in Hampton likes to do clusters. What we do is we put the traps in straight lines as basically buffers out near the water's edge to create that wall to the protected areas. And it's been highly effective for the last 25, 30 years since we started implementing them that way. As Tom had said earlier, these are the communities that have traps. Essex entered about 6 years ago, 5 years ago. Ipswich has been there a long time. Manchester a couple of years ago came on. Newbury, Salisbury, and Saugus have been there as well. Next slide, based on what we were thinking, just as a potential, I found some data from when we used to put the traps out in Gloucester and around Wingersheek Beach. This is just kind of like a slight proposed of the 20 traps that we could potentially start with you guys this year. But as you can see, we would build that protection up against the beach and hopefully, limit the amount of flies that are going to come to that heavily recreation area, the north there on the beach. And as always, we recommend that people wear protectant repellent for greenheads. Good luck, usually a quick hand or a 5-pound hammer, like I said before. Light colored clothing, long sleeves, pants when possible. Take advantage of windy days, even though I have been out on the boat in the mouth of the river before in the middle of July and have been almost carried away by greenheads. Us who do a lot of stuff on the river know to avoid the river during those peak times. Also screened in porches, heavy breathing, all that stuff can kind of limit the dangers of being bit by a greenhead. And if anyone has any questions, I'll answer them to the best of my ability. There we go.
I have a question.
Yep.
So do the traps currently use the octanol repellent or attractant?
It's an attractant. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I was kind of looking up on the EPA, the ingredient, its use and safety and everything like that. So what kind of concerns would you have, like environmentally, and then also for people for that chemical?
So that chemical is in like a little 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch wafer wrapped in plastic with some holes that's attached to the inside of the trap. So it's not easily accessible. The trap is bolted shut. We tend to put the traps where they're extremely hard to reach by people. Usually, not all the time, there is some hand lines, usually by boat. They're in areas that would make it very difficult for people. And actually we use the typical wafer, we actually use half the amount, and we've seen the same results. And we've never had an issue with any field tech with using that chemical, and I've never had any complaints from anyone. And we always make sure that it stays within the trap so it doesn't become trash or litter or hurt the environment that it's actually in.
Does
Very-
it attract?
Sorry, Kelly, go on.
Does it attract other pests or insects?
So what we found is it does help attract the greenheads. We do get some other like spiders, maybe a couple moths. But it's really, really typically just the greenheads we get in there.
That was exactly the question I was about to ask, what the
Yeah.
bycatch, as it were, is.
Yeah. If it attracted like anything else, say dragonflies or praying mantises or anything else, we wouldn't use it. You know, we're environmentally conscious program. We'd like to think that when we say we're either out there for mosquito control or for greenhead mitigation, that's exactly what we want to do.
Do you know why? Oh, sorry. I don't
No,
want to
go
take
ahead,
over
go
all the
ahead.
questions.
Go ahead.
Do we know why Gloucester left the program in like the 80s? Was it funding or? were
I
they-
personally don't know. The last guy who worked with us that had been here back in the early 80s, late 70s, has retired. I'm just not 100% sure. It could be funding. I know there has been price increases through the years, and especially currently with the price of lumber, trying to get material. It's definitely probably a consideration based on the 80s and some of the recessions back then, that municipalities probably could have cut them to save even a couple $1,000s back then.
If I
So
could-
did I understand that you said you would start with 20?
I have enough on hand to start with at least 20 or whatever you guys, if you decide to move forward. I have 20 to give this year, just because if I knew you wanted 40 and you knew you were going to approve it, I would have already built them.
Uh-huh.
And
Somehow
so
I thought I saw a larger number.
so
but
back
I
in
don't
the
know where I read
70s,
that.
back in the 70s and 80s, Gloucester used to put out 58 traps, 58, 60 traps.
So ultimately, we would be looking to at least do a minimum of that number and possibly exceed that if we could. But really, for this year to get started, the most you could offer us would be 20 because of that's what's already built.
Okay,
That's what's already built. Then I need time to scout boat ramps, scout the marsh behind Wingashire Beach, if that's even where you want to put them. A lot of these decisions can be up to you guys. You can spread them out more. I think if you spread out 20 traps somewhere else in Gloucester, like over at Good Harbor Beach or something, it's not going to be as effective. You'd probably need more traps to do that.
Right. What we'd be hoping to do is at least start from the mouth of Jones River towards Wingashire.
Yeah.
And that's what your slide showed, was right there at the mouth of the Jones River.
Yeah.
And covering that area, and over by Stone Pier where a lot of the kayakers put in and go
right.
out in the Jones River area and towards Wingashire. So we'd be looking to cover that whole area from the mouth of the Jones River over by where the houseboats are. For those of you that use the river would know, right up into the Wingashire Beach full area there.
And I had forwarded, go ahead, Max.
No, I apologize. A couple of different things. I do have a couple of questions of my own, but I also want to recognize that Shellfish Constable Peter Seminara is, I promoted him to a panelist and he would like to speak. And so I'd like to hear from Pete first before I follow with my own comments and questions.
Yeah.
You're all set,
Thank
Pete.
you.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Max. I support Mr. Quinn's desire to have traps put in. I'm on that river for half of my year, and the greenheads are a major nuisance. Barry, it looks like the location that you showed on your map would be the optimum location, as Mr. Quinn said, from the mouth of the Jones River to the north along Wingashire Beach and then up behind Coffins. And if you need assistance if this is approved and you need assistance scouting out locations, by all means, let me know and I'd be glad to assist. I spent half the year back there, so.
Absolutely.
I could just want to say, as a kayaker, that's where I kayak mostly, and I just don't go during that 3 or 4 week period because it's that unbearable. You
Yeah.
know, especially kayaking, you're not going that fast like in a power boat. You can try to get away from it, but in a kayak, you cannot. So my question, Max, is about how we would pay for this.
Oh, so, well, that gets back to one of the points I was going to bring up, but I still have a couple of questions I want to ask as well.
Yeah.
But in regards to that, so what is before the board this evening is just a request from Mr. Quinn to provide a sort of a blessing, as it were, from the board that the board approves of this moving forward, but the ultimate decision is going to lie with the administration, and the administration will have to bring it to council, and the council will have to discuss and vote and allocate funding to it that way. We're in budget season, as I'm sure Mr. Quinn isn't hyper aware of. And so it would have to be sooner rather than later, and that's why we're kind of at the point we're at. But as a follow-up to that, recognizing that, everything's part of a cycle, and I understand the greenheads are incredibly a nuisance, but I'm curious as to both sides. What else do greenheads eat besides chomping on people? Do they have other nuisance insects that maybe they find as a food source? What's the efficacy of the boxes? Oh, excuse me, forgive me, before I even go to that. On the other side, what eats a greenhead? So are there migratory birds that rely on them and that sort of thing? And then follow up to that, what's the efficacy? Because I think and forgive me if I'm not remembering correctly, did I hear 30 larvae per square foot or thereabouts? So if that's the case, what's the hopeful, at least, efficacy rate for the percentage of greenheads that could be eliminated by a box or several boxes? I'm sorry, it's a lot.
Yeah, so there are birds that do feed on the greenheads. This is not greenhead elimination. This is just to help. We've had years where certain communities said, wow, they were really light this year. The boxes must really work, which they do work. And then other years when, say, Salisbury said we had a very light year, and we go out to Ipswich residents and they say they were the worst they ever experienced. And so we go and check on the boxes, and we've got 8, 10, 12, 15,000 flies in there. Still getting bit while we're checking them, still getting bit when we place them out. It's the dent we put in the population doesn't hurt the predation around it, because there's just so many, and the marsh is so big. So I really just need to stress that it's not elimination, because when we do put them out, we actually have residents who call and say, I got bit by a greenhead, and they get extremely mad at us. And I have to say that it's not elimination. It's impossible. And that would be bad for the environment.
No, and Barry, don't get me wrong. I'm just bringing these forward just as considerations, not necessarily as opinions.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I'm sorry, what did you ask me?
Oh, so
something
sorry.
else
The other
too?
thing is, all right, so birds will eat the greenheads, but what else do the greenheads eat besides chomping on humans for blood?
Or any mammals. It's really humans or mammals is what they like to bite the most. That we've found anyway in some of our research.
But they don't predate on other insects, for instance.
Let me double check. Not that I really know of.
I did read one article where the greenhead larvae feed on deer flies in the marsh. However, as Barry said, these projects don't realistically put a dent in the population of the greenheads. They're not an eradication. They're a stopgap measure during tourist season.
Mhm. Okay, that's fine. I'm all set, Barry. Thank you.
Yep.
Do we have a
That-
ballpark number as to what the cost would be for, say, 20 boxes deployed?
Yep, so 20 boxes would be $2,500. That's just for initial construction. And then we do $82 a season per trap for deployment, repairs, replacement, and storage. So for this year, it'd be 2,500 initially, plus the 82 times 20 would be $4,140 for the season. If Gloucester decided to come on, you can come on in a 3-year contract with us, where the initial upfront cost goes away, and it's just $82 a trap for those 3 years to maintain the traps. Or you can do year to year, where that 82 will be subject to fluctuations in price of lumber, repair, and everything else. And as of right now, every municipality that's in our program is in our 3-year cycle.
I just want to state for the board, excuse me, I don't think the cost of the having the traps should be a consideration of the board necessarily. It's whether or not they feel that the traps will have an efficacy that's beneficial to health, human safety, and the quality of life. It certainly meets the quality of life standard on that end. Human safety, if you want to count people running away from them and possibly tripping over and hurting themselves. But, you know, that's a qualitative, you know, estimate on the board's part. And again, the vote would be to recommend or not to the city council, and we would draft language appropriately as a memo to the mayor's office in support of or against, but it sounds like we're heading in support of having them put in.
Would you
Next,
be able?
let's-
Oh, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
Could I just say one more thing? If you guys do approve it tonight, and then you bring it to the city council and then they vote on it, and I finally got, say, my final answer, how late would that be in the season from now?
Well, it's city council cycles every 2 weeks. We have to get in our information in for the mayor's report at usually on the Thursdays before the city council meetings, or Wednesdays before the city council meetings. So it would be soon. I think the next city council meeting is April 12th. So if I were able to get it done tomorrow, I could get it in for next week.
Okay, I was just curious if it was gonna be, say, the middle of June, it just wouldn't work out.
No, I think, in all
For
honesty,
anybody.
I apologize. I think I may have missed the deadline, or we may have missed the deadline for the next city council meeting. The next one would be April 26th. So
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. Yeah,
It-
yep.
Max, and just for the board members as well, I have spoken to City Councilor Val Gilman, who's very supportive of this, as well as the Harbor Master TJ Shimataro, and the Shellfish Constable who was on here tonight. Is there any way that we might be able to try to push this forward for that next city council meeting, especially where it looks like we have their support? And also, I want to note that, you know, I know that this is the Board of Health, but this isn't, we're not pushing it that it's a health issue, but it's a quality of life issue. And that's really the big thing that we're trying to push forward here, that it's more of a quality of life thing for anybody that is near the water.
Well, Tom, I would imagine that, you know, the mayor's office is not going to only take our input. I mean, and obviously Peter's, and as well as TJ, but the harbor master, but I'm sure they're also going to want to hear from the Conservation Commission, most especially, aside from us. So do you have has this gone before Concom just yet?
No, you guys are the first folks that I've presented this to, because my little bit of research is showed me that this is starts with the Board of Health, that the Board of Health somewhat has jurisdiction over this this type of an issue.
Interesting. I haven't heard that myself, but.
And maybe
sure,
Barry
we'll
could
slow
speak a
anything
little bit more. Barry, what have you found in other communities?
It's directly with the Board of Health. We usually don't talk to the Concom about it. I personally never have. So it's usually the Board of Health. They approve it or not, or change the amount of traps they want the fund at a certain time, and we go from there.
Yeah, that's if it's presented, I would imagine, through, the administration would have to decide which department would be the gatekeeper for this, and who would oversee, on behalf of the city, who would oversee the implementation and the expenditures. But the administration would have to make that decision themselves. I'd have to look
Right.
it up because I'm unaware of it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Don't get me wrong. So it's just something we have to consider, because it's an added responsibility to the department where, yes, there is a public health benefit, possibly, certainly public quality of life. However, I have to be, aware of department staff time and capacity. So I just have, for the board to take that into consideration as well. And I can, relate that to the administration in my memo to them as well.
Okay, so I'm a little confused now, Max, because I was ready, to make a motion that to support this to move forward, but I'm also aware of how overburdened the staff of the health department is, and so I wouldn't want to put more burden on the staff. And so where are you in your thoughts about that?
So, well, I'm just starting to have them, so that's one thing. But, I think there's no problem with the board moving forward if they choose to provide their support to this project. It will be a discussion with the administration at that point to decide with which department it would sit, whether it's Shellfish, whether it's the harbor master. We generally don't have jurisdiction in Shellfish Flats and marshes by and large. However, and that discussion would allow me an opportunity to get a little bit more background from Barry and from Tom as to how this has worked in other communities. And so I have a better idea and reach out to my colleagues in those communities that they've listed as well. So I would say that, we could definitely get that done for the meeting of the 26th for the city council. I don't think we're going to get this conversation done in time for the city council meeting of the 12th.
So in that case, then I would make a motion that we support this project of adding these greenhead boxes, and that we move it forward to the next step, which is the city council.
This is, Claudia, this would be specifically the 20 boxes to be
The
deployed. near-
20, exactly.
Can we add like a caveat? Like I know, Barry, you said you've never presented to the Conservation Commission, but I don't know if that could be an add-on, like request from the board to just have it be blessed, I guess, by them as well.
Yeah, that's totally up to you guys.
Yeah, we would just put a special condition with it, that's all.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
With that proviso, I would second Claudia's motion.
Could I just ask that in addition to going forward, for the 20 boxes, but that we also ask for the full consideration of the administration to at least do the full amount for the following year? I mean, if we ask for the full amount, but Barry can only supply us with 20, then we don't have to go through the process again. We've got the full support of the full amount. He will only be able to fulfill a portion of that full amount for this year, if that
What
makes
is the
sense.
full amount? What's,
Well, what
58.
we, yeah, go ahead, Barry.
Traditionally, Gloucester had 58 boxes.
58? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I think,
Go ahead.
I think that should just be part of the proposal to, or information provided to the administration and city council that the apparent requisite coverage for Gloucester would be 58 boxes, and that would entail 58 times $82 a year if we go into 3-year purchase. I just think that makes life easier all the way around to just make the administration and city council fully aware of what the optimal, I guess, in quotes, solution might be.
Mhm.
Forgive me, just one follow-up question. I know there's been a motion and seconded, but Barry, if I can interrupt you for a sec. In regards to the placement of them, I'm guessing that your organization has all the requisite state permissions to go onto the marshes, install these things. And when they are installed, are they hammered in or how?
They're hammered in with stakes,
Okay,
2-foot stakes.
okay,
um,
great, thank you.
Yep. Just because the tides are getting higher and higher. So, yeah. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I just was curious. Oh, and also, just so folks know, Dr. Ganem had to sign off, but before he signed off, he gave his full support as well. If you want to add that to the consideration.
Good. Is there any further discussion? So Max, can you repeat what the motion is on the floor?
Sure.
Do you know that?
So the motion would be for the board to provide a memo of support through the department to the administration for the implementation of 58, I think we heard. I almost said mosquito. Greenhead control boxes at designated sites to be determined by Mr. Noon and his organization for their efficacy, for the comfort and well-being of people who use the area recreationally, and that with the caveat that the board expects that there is a need for the Conservation Commission to approve this proposal as well. And I think that's pretty much it. It'll be formulated around that.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and for information purposes, I think it's worth pointing out, especially since the price is lower, that this year the expectation would be that only 20 boxes would be provided at whatever cost it is.
58 total, fine, by next year.
Right.
Okay, got it.
And then we had probably just asked the administration for at least a 3-year commitment to keep the cost less, as Barry had mentioned.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay,
Can I just interject one thing?
of course.
I believe that all that would be required on the Conservation Commission side would be an RDA to show that they've granted permission for installation if it is approved by the city for funding.
So RDA, for those who don't know, is request for determination of applicability. Drawing from my old hat.
Thank you, Peter. Any further comments, discussion?
Can I ask, do you want to add the 3-year commitment to the motion? The board didn't actually say that, so
Right, we can certainly do that.
Yeah.
Max can no doubt incorporate much in in his letter to the administration. Sure, we can add to the motion. That should be
Yeah.
part of the motion to, that,
And what I'll do, Joe, is I'll create a draft and I'll forward it to you for review.
okay, good.
Thank you.
Further discussion, comments? Let's vote. The chair votes yes. Claudia,
Yes,
Eric,
Yes,
Kelly,
Yes,
and can we assume that Don is also in favor?
He was
Max?
definitely in favor. We'll include that as, yeah, that's fine. I'm sorry.
Okay, very good. Thank you, gentlemen. Peter,
Thank you.
Tom?
thank you.
Thank you, board members. So
yes,
is there
thank you.
anything more that Barry and I need to do from this point on to take it to the administration, or do you guys just take it from here and roll out? Because this
Yeah, no,
process is new to me.
Yeah, no, that's quite all right. It's new to us as well, to tell you the truth. But it would, yeah, typical is to create a memo that would go to the administration, Jill Cahill, the CAO. She is aware that we were talking about this evening. They said that that's what their expectation would be.
And I will follow up with you, Max, tomorrow morning with an email basically about the first 20 for this year, the rollout, the cost. And then,
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
the cost for the next 38 traps next year and the commitment for 3 years.
Perfect. Thank you, Barry. I appreciate that.
Yep. Yep,
looking forward to a more enjoyable summer of kayaking.
I hope so.
All right, let's move on to the last item under new business, I believe.